What's up, cycling fans? We got another World Championship episode coming at you. But first, we got a few notes and sponsors to hit. We're sponsored by NISBRA, the New York State Bicycle Racing Association. NISBRA does all the tough stuff behind the scenes for amateur racing in New York. They do a ton to support racing and grants, as well as a lot of the logistics that help make racing work. So hit them up on Facebook or on their website for lots of good resources. Follow them for lots of information that will be coming for next season as cross season kind of winds down, and show them some love because there's a lot of hard stuff that goes there from a lot of really good people. We're sponsored by Legacy Bikes. That's Legacy with an I, Legaci bikes.com. Christmas is right around the corner, so get your little one up on two wheels with a ride from Legacy Bikes. They got all kinds of makes and models and colors and all kinds of fun stuff. So hit Todd up and get your kid that sweet bike underneath the tree this year. Also, on a side note here, I've had a lot of questions about the Dirty Bikes Gravel Series for the spring. A lot of people wondering about dates and locations and races and all that kind of good stuff. I'm thrilled so many people are excited, and I'm excited as well. We're going to roll that out in the next couple weeks. It's a couple days before Thanksgiving right now as we get ready to publish this episode. So probably within a week or so after Thanksgiving, we'll start to roll out some dates and stuff there. So stay tuned in for that. We'll definitely make announcements on this podcast, but also on our Facebook page at Dirty Bikes Gravel Series. And you can also check out my Instagram at Once Again Racing, where I'll make a lot of those posts as well. So I'm stoked that everybody is excited for gravel for the spring and excited to come back to our series. But we just need a little bit more time to finalize a few things because, like always, we try to make it better every year, and we got to make sure the details are right before we start rolling stuff out. So it's coming. We're excited, and we'll get that to you real soon. All right. On to the important stuff. This episode is another World Championship feature, this time on the duo of Christine Dercole and Camie Kornely. They won a Masters Track World Championship this year. They've won national championships. They have a really interesting story in terms of their personal sort of chemistry and dynamics of a team and a duo there, and the way that they treat each other both as competitors and teammates, which I think is really interesting, especially for those of us that don't come from a track background, to see how that works in the world of track. One of the things we're trying to do with some of these track stories is give people a better understanding of what track racing looks like for those of us that are into the sport of cycling but maybe not exposed to that end of it, which I'm fully in that camp. I've learned a ton lately with Todd and some of the great guests we've had from the track world, and this one's no different. Especially with the Olympics coming up, we have on our website Target Tokyo page where we're featuring some track athletes who might be in that conversation for Tokyo 2020, or might not be in that conversation, but the conversation about their exploits in track might help us understand the track racing a little bit better when it is coming to the Olympics. So that was kind of the thought there, and I hope that like me, some other people are getting some insight there. And then for those of you that are very much into track already, hopefully you just find the stories of these individuals exciting and interesting in the same way that the rest of us do. So without much more, I'll get you right into it, but I think there's a lot of really good stuff here, and particularly an amazing story toward the end of the podcast about Camie being injured in competition and what that looks like and how she got home, essentially. So make sure you really stick it to the end and you hear that, because that's some of the best stuff of the whole episode. But lots of really good stuff from these two ladies. I'm really honored that they came on and shared their story, and we hope to hear from them again. So without any more from me, please enjoy this World Championships show.
You'll never go out on a training ride and dig that deep.
Awesome. We won gold.
Their life ride.
I'm like, dude, I'm still figuring this out.
Lose sight of the fact that it's whoever goes faster.
This isn't a road race. This is the mountain bike race.
The sensei of sprint, Todd Jeffries.
My eyes are coming out of my head. Just get in here.
We'll roll right into it. Welcome, ladies. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Oh, well, again, thanks for having us. Where to begin?
Where to begin?
Well,
Get-
yeah, let's start. Let's start. We won't go all the way to the beginning because that's probably like you guys are like on your big wheel, right? So,
When I was
and
5 years old.
but let's wind it back a little bit to let's start with either one of you jump in, but kind of how did you kind of get into competitive cycling, and then how did you guys meet up, pair up, and to kind of bringing us towards where we are this year with you guys being team sprint partners, and we'll talk a little bit about what the team sprint is and everything, but kind of how did each of you get going, and then how did you guys play off each other and become friends and teammates?
Well, Camie, do you
You
mind
wanna
if I? All right.
Yeah, you start.
So I don't know why my headphones just said mute on. I didn't do anything.
Well, we can hear
Can
you,
you-
so
You
so
can
if you
hear
start
me.
swearing,
Okay,
yeah, if you start
great.
swearing, everybody's hearing you. So.
Um, so I will actually go back to the very beginning and say when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a ballerina, but they wouldn't put me in any shows that had a short tutu because my thighs were twice the size of all the other girls. And it was a long journey of like body shame until I found the bicycle. And when I started, well, messengering in New York City first, then racing eventually, I learned that these legs that I had been so ashamed of were actually built for something because they could win bike races. And it became an incredibly empowering thing to me, having been in dance and having been in theater, where everything was based on how you look. And that seemed to be against me in those worlds. How I looked and how my body was built actually made me successful instead of being an obstacle. So I started racing in 1996, and I've raced on and off since then. I've had breaks, had a child, and I had gone pretty far in 2009 and 10, and I went to nationals those 2 years and came home with a gold and some silver and some bronze. But then I took about 7 years off where I did not race. Camie was getting into track cycling, having been a roadie at the time that I was leaving. And she, for about 7 years, continued to message me to try to get me to come back. And she was successful, and I'm really grateful for it.
That's awesome. So this constant barrage of like Christine, where are you? Like I need a teammate. Why aren't you riding?
Yeah, I didn't really like. I knew we knew each other like from the community, but like we didn't know each other that well back then. But I had been to nationals, and she was thinking of going to nationals, and I was like, "Who's this girl? She's my competition. I want to help her."
Yeah, right.
I remember looking at her message back in like, I don't know, 2010, 11, 12 maybe. I was like, oh, do I really want to answer this? Be a good person, Christine. Of course you do. We need more women cycling.
Right. I should at least encourage her. Right. At least not discourage her, right? Yeah.
Right. Well, next thing you know, she's beating me in all these match sprints.
Right. It's like, what did I do? What did I do?
Seriously.
Yeah. But that's awesome though. I mean, the fact that you guys kind of get kind of beyond that, and I think it's hard sometimes as competitors, but I also think that also speaks. It's always been my experience at the track is that track especially, and maybe more so than road, and I think we've mentioned this before, can be very a much tighter community, and it's sort of like the infield is not as much is not competitive, right? I mean, I've loaned out stuff to people, like Andrew Brennan let me use his disc wheel when I flatted my disc sprint, and he's like, just use mine, and then I used his disc wheel for like the whole day, right, in all the match sprints.
Yeah.
So I think you're exemplifying that kind of that community where it's like, yeah, we might be competitors when we're on the track, but off the track it's a tight community.
I agree 100%.
Definitely one of the points. That's one of the points that brought me to the track. I had been racing road for probably 10 years, And the road doesn't lend itself to that social aspect unless you really make time outside of racing to have that happen. And when Christian came along, my son, I wasn't doing that. It was difficult to make time for group rides because, I always had to have a sitter or organize things around that. And it became a challenge. And I was going to be done with road racing because the time commitment was also pretty extensive. And my coach, Matthew Kashara at the time, and said, you know what, your strength is really in the sprinting. Why don't you try to go to track? And it was the end of the season, probably 2014.
Okay.
I would say at this point. And you go, and at Casino, it's 3 races. You do 3 events, and in between the 3 events, you're hanging out with everybody on the infield. So you race your bike, you get your racing fix, and then there's this whole social dynamic that I wasn't used to. And it was very easy for me to bring Christian to the races. And I can't tell you in the beginning how many times somebody was like, Camie, during your race, I'll watch your kid for you. Okay.
Right.
And there are all these great little pictures out, where, he's hanging out in the infield with everybody else. And it really became a family to me. And, I started using that hashtag TrackFam all over the place because that's what it was like for me. And it was the same thing when I would go to T-Town, and Christian would come along, and everybody knew he was my little mechanic.
Right.
And the track was really welcoming for that aspect for me specifically.
I had that same experience when I brought my daughter back the early 2000s. Same experience. It's such a family.
Yeah, and it's great when because now it's kind of like you can kind of not only sharing with people that you enjoy racing with, but now it's like your family's next to, they can watch the racing as well. And I've certainly seen some of the Masters guys with younger kids, and like at T-Town they have the Masters and rookies, and their kids are racing as well. So then all of a sudden it becomes this thing where it's like it's not just you going off and doing something, and it's like you can really include other people really easily. Which I think is a bit unique, but it kind of opens itself up to that, kind of more of a friendships. And I've had really good friendships with a lot of people from track because of that kind of that downtime, especially if you get a rain delay.
Let's sit around for 2 hours and wait for the track to dry, and you're like, okay, so then it becomes like, okay, we're all just hanging out as a kind of a party in the infield then. Or wherever we happen to be, but
the thing is that exact dynamic carries from track to track. So because in our country the tracks are so spread out, and we have this dynamic with how the racing goes, and you're spending this time socially on the infield. And one of my favorite experiences was out in Minnesota at whatchamacallit, what's the name of the track?
Fixed Gear.
I'm gonna have to edit. Oh, yeah, the Fixed Gear, but the track which is now going to be taken down. I was out there for 2 or 3 years consistently, and every time it was just the most welcoming group of people and the most relaxed infield with some of the best racing that I have been a part of. So you're just racing your butt off, and it's pretty intense. And then the infield was just like a barbecue.
Right.
But again, you get that at different tracks around the country. So all of a sudden you have this really small community in this really large country. And it's kind of tight knit, and I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, in you guys' estimation, and this wasn't something I was thinking of before we started this conversation, but I mean, given that you guys have developed this friendship, and it was basically kind of really centers around track cycling because Camie was persistent, but that aspect of it seems, and when we look at a lot of times of building women's cycling, and it's been a mantra for 30 years. I've been doing this. This is my 35th race season that I just finished, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been for as long as I can remember. It's always like, how do we get more women's cycling? And it always seems like women's cycling centers really much more on the on the community aspect, on the camaraderie, that kind of a thing, and much less so for men's cycling, where it's sort of like, well, yeah, we come up, we race, and it's okay. Although you still get the same aspect in men's track, with that kind of that closer knit. But do you think that's a bigger factor, and is that something, to maybe consider as we talk about growing women's cycling?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're the ones who have the babies. And I mean, just in our experience, I mean, anyway.
Yeah, no, yes, don't
the
leave
experience
that.
of that, like you would have to, Camie was going to stop racing.
Right.
She was going to exit the community on some level. I did not race for several years because my daughter required more attention than I could split. And, but there are times when, like we just both described, that this community draws us together and helps us, and there's hands on your back. And I think women are more community centered, if I'm allowed to say that.
You're allowed to say whatever you want.
Yeah, of course I am. I think that it has become a really safe place on the infield where there is so much support and so much real, true friendship. Like, I think of my friends from the track as even if I don't see them regularly outside of the track, there is such a deep connection there. And it cuts through all demographics. And you've got like people who are like struggling to be there at the track, and then you've got your doctors and your lawyers, and it's a great uniter, this passion for the bicycle. And as far as growing the sport, well, we just got to keep talking about how much we love it and it's one conversation at a time to get somebody out there to the track,
Yeah, I think it's exactly it.
Sometimes
And
it takes 7 years of that same conversation.
True.
Maybe now there's a lesson learned, right? So you were persistent. You got Christine back out there, and now presumably, Christine, were you able to share your experience and your knowledge to kind of get Camie ramped up? It's like, what are you going to need? Otherwise, it's a little bit foreboding, right? You're like, I'm going to go to the track. I don't know what I'm doing. And it can be pretty technical, and there's all these things that are kind of going on, and rules of races. Even if you're going to I'm going to focus on the sprints, but you're probably doing some of the other, what they call the endurance events. So I try to make sure I always emphasize to people, track is not just about sprinting. And because they're like, oh, I'm not a sprinter, and you're like, there's endurance events, that are super hard. But were you able to start imparting things on her then and say, hey, this is what you need to do? And were you guys
I think by the time I finally came back, she already knew a lot, and she was coaching me. And my rusty legs.
We have a thing.
She's like,
we have a thing. Because in the beginning, I think Christine's experience, when she was racing competitively, a lot of the training and dynamic and, things that people were doing on the track had changed at the time she came back. So
sure.
We were kind of learning together, but we were in very different places. And we have this thing, what gear are you using?
Right.
Oh, my God.
It grew into like, well, what gear are you using? And we wouldn't tell each other, and then we would lie, and then we would tell each other.
And I don't know, you might have still been lying.
No. Ultimately, it's a personal choice, and it depends on, what your strengths are. It doesn't really correlate to the other person, but, it's this fun game to try to, we had fun with it anyway.
Yeah.
And trying to figure the whole thing out. And it's still play that game going into team sprint because, it's about getting the most out of each other and how do we maximize what we're doing, and the gearing plays into that in how we're able
that
to
has been a huge learning journey, this whole what gear are you riding question game that we have played for the last couple of years. Me coming back, not knowing what I was capable of, having just coming in kind of new again, there's so much anxiety about the choice that you make, because some people are better spinners and some people are better mashers, and then there's some people who are better right in between. And I didn't know, so I needed a point of reference. I thought if I can ride the same gear she's riding and see what I can do, then I'll know if I need to gear up or down, or not know, but I'll experiment with gearing up or down in order to beat her.
Right.
And therein lies that competitive aspect too, because we would compete with one another then. Well, like,
of course.
Do I really want her to know what I'm using? Wait, maybe not.
Right.
And so, but the thing is, like, it's really, what I have found is really hard to find a match of someone else who has the same intensity, the same drive to succeed, and the same kind of perspective of, you know what, I'm going to push really hard and I'm going to give it all I have. But at the end of the day, we're doing this for fun, you know, and I think that's an kind of ironic balance, you know, the intensity, but the laid back aspect. But Christine has that same thing. So here we are able to play this game and be intensely competitive with one another. And at the end of the day, be laughing as we go to dinner. I can't say that I've had that magic really with other competitors all the time. You know, so for the both of us, I think that just kind of works and helps both of us get stronger.
Right.
Yeah, it's a pretty profound chemistry that we have. And my phone actually cut out there for a second, so I missed part of what you said, Camie. So forgive me if I'm repeating, because I don't know. But getting to know over the past couple of years my strengths, and knowing that it doesn't matter what gear she's riding. It's about me knowing what gear I can ride, and we could be in a gear that's 6 inches different. It's about what's your strength and which gear for which race is going to help you achieve your goal and show and allow you to access your most powerful self. Is not about, and here's the bigger lesson, is not about comparing yourself to what anybody else has got.
Right, but there is this aspect, and you know, and people that don't do track sprints are probably like, what do you kind of really mean? And it's like, well, you can't shift. So for one, you're in the gear that you're using, but you also kind of sometimes like to know, is the other person planning on going long? Are they planning on going short? Depending on if are they going to do a short pop, more of a short pop of a sprint, or are they going to try to what we call kiloing somebody, right? Try to take them from 3 laps out basically, or go even a longer sprint, but on that same token, I like kind of where you're like kind of saying like it doesn't really matter what the other person, because it doesn't for what you need to do, because you need to say like, okay, look, if you're a long sprinter, you're gonna say, look, I'm a long sprinter, but I know, say like I'm gonna make some up, you know, like, I know Camie's riding like an 84-inch gear, and she's gonna try to keep it short, so I know I'm already a long sprinter, so I'm gonna ride even a little bit bigger. I'm gonna take her really super long. You know, but it's really more about your strategy than it is about her strategy. It's just kind of knowing who she is as a rider and saying, well, this is the strength she needs to play. I always give a lot of credit to you guys. You guys are familiar with Andrew LaCourte, and Andrew's a fantastic sprinter, but also he always walks around the infield and watches the other sprints. And because I saw him on video one time. I'm like, oh, he's watching my sprint, so he's picking up what my game was. Not really he was necessarily worried about beating me, because I think I've only ever beat him maybe twice, maybe ever. You know, because he's just. I mean, when somebody's just, you know, 0.2 or 0.3 faster than you in a 200. It's really hard to overcome that. It's just like, it's like you could be as strategic as you want, but it's just like like whatever I do doesn't really matter, as even if I go long, he finally gets on and then he's just faster. But at the same time, he knew what his game needed to be, but he also knew what my game was going to be, and so that he was aware of what I was going to try to do. But it's really, but still, it's really about your strategy and your strength, right?
Right. Yep.
So I think that, but it's interesting that you guys have this. So you guys have this kind of this push and pull of what is using, because I kind of want to know what she's thinking, right? But you kind of already know, right? You already know what the strength is. You're just like, okay, but maybe I can do something to counteract that with what I'm doing.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, now it's just like, what are you riding? I'm riding a 98. I'm riding a 103. I'm riding a 92. Like, okay, cool.
Right. You kind of know where it's kind of going, and but it adds a fun.
Well, that's what she said.
Yeah. But for the team sprint, obviously we're a team, so it's imperative that we choose those gears very carefully and together with guidance.
Right. So let's talk about the team sprint a little bit, because you guys have been competitors and you didn't start out as teammates in the team sprint either, right? So you guys you were competing against sprints against each other, maybe even some endurance races, kind of feeling all that stuff out. And but it kind of culminates up with, when did you guys become team sprint partners? How did that happen, and where is that taking you?
Well, when she got me to come back in 2017, it was like, are you going to go to nationals? Like, holy crap, this is my first season back. Okay, yeah, sure, I'll go to nationals. Let's do the team sprint.
Wait, and nationals, I think, were in T-Town. Were they in T-Town that year?
Yes.
No, it was 2016, and it was at T-Town. And I hadn't done team sprint, but one time before, I think, when I ran it man one,
Right.
So we didn't really get a chance to practice it. We just, threw it out there, and Christine didn't get on my wheel.
It's the worst team sprint ever. I still struggle to get on her wheel.
So is this basically so for people that don't understand,
our team sprint is a 500-meter time trial.
It's your TT. So explain to people how the team sprint works, because a lot of people won't know what that is. So describe to the team sprint. What is the event?
So
go ahead, Camie.
People on the track, and each of them does a lap. So the starter, or man one, their job is to really get an explosive start and try to get up to speed as fast as possible, while man two is drafting off of them. They're trying to pull up behind, and any bit behind the bike, they're saving energy, depending on where they are, up to 30%. As they come around for that first lap, they pull off, and man two is accelerating into that draft so that they can maximize what they're doing for that second lap. So it's really an all-out effort, for man two for sure, for the 2 laps, and man one on getting that start and up to speed.
Right. So that's the theory. So the theory is you're going man one. You're going, or woman one in this case. That's Camie. So Camie's job is get you guys up to speed. Christine, you got one job to do.
Yeah, not get dropped.
Right. You got one job to do, Christine. Stay on for a lap. Right.
If I could actually get on her wheel.
The whole time I'm telling her, every race, I'm like, Christine, I'm going to drop you. I am dropping you. And her job is
say that.
And she hates when I say that, but it's the reality. Like, I'm trying to drop her, because the faster, if I think that, if that's my mentality, I'm going to go all out. But then she, knowing that, needs to try to catch me. And that's I don't know, for me mentally, that's the best way to, catch the rabbit. Try,
And I have to have the mentality to, like, as though I was actually going to go around you. Right. And that's where I have struggled with the psychology of this race, knowing that I've got to get in the draft. So I have had all kinds of issues With
Missy was great at Worlds. Missy said, try to go around her, pass her going into the first turn, and that made a huge difference. Yeah,
it did. Where you're focused and how you think about the race is everything.
Yeah, and you don't have a lot of time to adjust.
I'll tell you a secret.
Right?
Tell a secret.
You want to know a secret?
Tell.
So at World in the morning, we went 39 something. It really wasn't super stellar, and Christine wasn't feeling so good about her effort. I forgot what gear we used. I think a 100 and
who's listening to this? You shouldn't tell. Don't tell.
You know what? Let them know.
Yes.
I don't know. It was something like that. It was like two gear inches apart.
Yeah.
And you were struggling, and a lot of it was mental. And going into the evening, like the whole day, it was a lot of just, I told her, I regurgitated her own speak back at her, you have to know it. I can, I am, I can, I will, I do believe I can do it. And
well, remember after that qualifier, I was so frustrated with myself and at the thought of disappointing you and at the idea of holding you back because you can get off so fast that I said, maybe you need another team sprint partner. I'm holding you back. And
I got mad
you read me the riot act. Yeah.
I wouldn't let her. There's no quitting. There is no quitting.
Yeah.
You just go harder. And
it was a pretty profound moment.
We came back in the evening, and I'm like, "Are you ready? Do you know you can do this?" She's like, "Yep, I can do this." I forgot what you had said.
I don't remember either.
I don't either, but I knew. I'm like, "Yep, we have this. We're gonna do this."
Yeah.
And I think something you said after Missy said, "Try to pass me," like your eyes lit up, and
it was like a revelation.
It was the fastest time we'd ever done. It was great.
Yeah,
that was
awesome.
a PR. Yeah.
Yeah, because it kind of because you reshift your focus from trying to just stay, but just driving hard enough. Because you already know it's like when it's especially on a 250, unlike T-Town, which is long. It's a long 2 laps. Now you get 250. When Camie pulls off, you're not, any sprinter knows once you can smell the finish line, you don't feel anything, right? So if you can get yourself to that point and have that really, really killer opening lap, you're going to take care of the second lap on your own,
right?
Because your body's just taking over at that point. You're not thinking about anything. You're just right.
You're just driving,
right? You can't even see. You're just going.
The team sprint at Worlds last year, that was a beautiful ride. We were down. I wind it up at the end, right? We were down by a second. I don't remember by how much, but we were down.
It was like half a second.
It was half a second.
You made it up in the last lap,
Like that, the burners just came on, and it was the cleanest lap I think I'd ever done in my life. And the focus was like, I don't know, it's like a blur. It was a freight train, it felt like. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing when you finally get your head in the right space and your focus is where it's supposed to be and you're not overthinking anything. But what a journey to get to those moments.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, right? And you guys, you have, because you have each other that you don't want to let down in an event like that, and so even when you're not maybe feeling it as the way you would like to, you have this obligation of like, well, I got somebody else that's really depending on me here, and if it's a men's team sprint of three riders, you've got 2 other guys that are, they're ready, and and if you're rider 3, you got to like, man, I got to pull my stuff together here because I got 3 laps, or Christine, you got 2 laps, and and you got to be. And those events are so short. It's not a 40K time trial. You can kind of like get your act together in a minute or two. It's when the gate lets you loose. You got to be 100%.
All horses go. Absolutely.
Well, and
I do love that about those team events.
Where the mental game plays in. And, if you have, I mean, you're talking fraction of a second, on a start, on a turn, hitting the right line. If there's any doubt in your mind, like, oh, I'm not sure I can do this, I'm not sure I can hit that turn, it's basically over. You really do have to know, you have to fully believe that you're capable of doing what you're setting out to do in order to be successful at it. Because any little shred of doubt, and it's so easy to fall apart. And
all it takes is that one moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a start. Was like, what was it? 2018 at I think it was Nationals. Was at T-Town in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And starting tequila, where I was my groove got all thrown off, and I lost my focus because they had some juniors that were still racing, and it messed up the schedule. And then I got goofed up, and then I wasn't warmed up right, and then I got distracted, and I was like, so I finally get up to the line, and like I'm kind of not really like this is the moment. And then it's 3, 2, 1, go, and all of a sudden I'm kind of like, I hesitate for that little, just wasn't fully on the. Yeah, there's a half a second right there.
Yeah.
Camie, what were you gonna say? Your favorite thing?
Oh, with our team sprint and that the mental aspect. The first time we did it, like we said earlier, it wasn't great. And then
we hadn't practiced.
The next time we went to do it, we were both now doing 40-something seconds for our time trial individually.
Right.
Doing 2 laps on your own. And going into team sprint that following year, I'm like, we're doing sub 40. Christine's like, you're not.
Yeah. It's like it's a decision.
Sub 40 and we did it. We went 39 something.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh my gosh, it was great. And then the next year,
that was amazing.
Now we're both doing 39 something in our time trial. I go to Christine, like,
just chipping away.
39. She's like, not again, and we went up 39.
Yeah.
And I think we went like 38.9 or something like that.
We went 38.5, ladies. 38.5.
Well, this year, yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny. In my line of work, teaching, cycling, I motivate people. I talk to them all day about I am, I can, I will, I do. Change your chatter. If something negative is in your head, it's just words. Change the words. But I show up at the track, and I'm in my own battle with it. And Camie is my number one mental. She'll straighten me out because I struggle. Everything we teach what we need to learn. We teach what we need to learn. And I can sit on that bike all day and tell people, tell yourself something better. Tell yourself you can. Decide you can. It's a choice, not a chance. I show up and I'm like,
Well, this is an important. I think this is a really important aspect too, Christine. That when you talk about that, because like you're literally you teach Peloton bike, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
And so I mean you're doing that a lot, and you're constantly getting people motivated and turned around from negativity and all these kinds of things. And I think it highlights why even people like I coach people, but I have also used a coach, and I talk with Brian Walton a lot, and Brian will tell me a lot of times he's like, stop overthinking it. I mean, sometimes I just need to hear stop overthinking it, because I'm all being all granular on myself, and then I'm all distracted by the granularity, and it's like, and I find myself even like, in that space sometimes where you need that voice. You need somebody that knows what they're talking about, and somebody that understands me and what I'm doing, and to give you sometimes it's that sound advice, and and so Camie kind of becomes your coach at the track, because while you can coach other people, coaching yourself is really difficult.
It really is. And but our bond it's so solid, and she can tell when I'm like not in the right space, and she'll be like, come over here, sit down, get your head straight.
Right.
And it's real. It's really real. I trust her 100% with my life, and even we play games. We'd be silly. What gear are you riding? I'm not telling. Silliness as I'll make sure that she's wearing lipstick before she goes up to the podium. But
that's not silly. That's very serious.
No, it's actually very serious.
I gotta say, that's not something I've ever coached somebody to do. So I mean, maybe I have to up my game.
It is such actually like it is such a beautiful moment of. It's not about the lipstick. It's about honoring success. And taking a moment and creating a ritual. Like, there's plenty of times I've put lipstick on her and she's the only one going to the podium. I'm not going up there. And, if I was a brat, I would be like, no, I'm not putting your lipstick on. But this, like, rituals like that really, we truly are a team.
It's about celebrating each other.
Yes. Yes.
It's celebrating each other. And that's, I think, circling back around to women's cycling, that's so powerful. And I think, women tend to be competitive with each other on so many different levels that creating, establishing a realm of support for one another is incredibly powerful, for our success. Individually, but, as a group of people. And I think track just lends itself for that aspect to happen and develop.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I'm hoping that a lot of women will listen to this podcast even and think, man, track cycling, maybe it's something for them. And even if they're not sprinters, and I really emphasize that to people, there's a lot of endurance events that happen out there. And there's Madisons, which are, again, you have one teammate that you have to work with, and they have their up days and their down days, and you're trying to mesh with that person. And it can be, and that's definitely an endurance event. Some of those races can be quite long.
But then there's individual events too, the timed events where, if you don't want to be on the track with a whole bunch of people, well, you can do something by yourself, but still be in the same atmosphere and have all of the same things that we're talking about, but do a race that is you just against the clock.
Exactly.
So the track covers every aspect of physicality you can do on a bike.
There's something for everyone.
Yeah, except barrier jumping. There is no barrier jumping. So.
No.
So there's 0.0. There's no running.
Tried. No. I've tried.
Yeah, well, So that's a great segue there because Camie tried, and so you guys went to Worlds and you guys kicked world butt. I mean, so that's it. You guys took the hardware, and Camie had some other successes in the other races as well. Came home with a fistful of gold medals, and I mean, all in all, you guys had this spectacular event. And you're down to like, what was it? It's like the last sprint, right, Camie? Was it the last one?
Oh God,
yeah.
So it's
the absolute last one. It was the last time I was going to be on the track over there. I get to go home right after this ride.
Yep.
And it's like to just finish this off, because now was this the you'd already gotten the 2 out of the 3 and you were just riding a third one, or how did that work out, or was this the second one, but how did it go? How did it transpire? Give us the story here, the 10,000 foot view.
Well, and my little background. So I took bronze the past 2 years, and going into this tournament, making the gold silver round, I was elated. I was good right there. And going into the first matchup with her, she took the first round, but I was like, oh, I'm not so far. And here, I went 12.1 on my 200, and she went 11.9. So
It's tough.
I'm like, close. So I changed my gear and really thought about the tactics. And Avers helped a lot, because you can granulate it, like you said, and overcomplicate things. And he's like, just, what did he say? Go up, ride high, go fast. And I was like, okay, sure. And going into the second round, I did what he said, and you look for the moments of opportunity, and the door opened coming out of 3, and I took off, and then she wasn't able to come around, and I'm like, oh, I could do this. I could do this.
Right. So now you're one apiece. It's best 2 out of 3. So now this is it. It's down to the last one. Big suspense moment. Big pressure.
Yeah, we go into the last round, and you play up the scenario. If I'm man 2, I'm going to do this. If I'm man 1, I'm going to do this. I ended up being man 1, and I had given myself 2 options, and went with one of them, and went early. So I went with 2 laps to go, and caught her off guard. She wasn't. Well, I figured in the time trial, like, she would have to really work. We were close again in the time trial. She'd have to work to come around me if I took off early. And wasn't ready for it. And she had a good gap to close, and she started coming up. And, I'm not really sure what happened coming out of 4. I've watched it over and over. And, she just.
I've watched it over and over, too.
I mean, I've not seen somebody come down into the lane real hard like that on top of somebody. And, I stopped pedaling and just tried to maintain control. Her knee hit my handlebar. So I started flailing all over the place. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to go down here, but realistically, it wasn't until I got to turn 1. And then my wheel just was off kilter and then hit the lip of the wood of the track and the concrete. It was just a wackadoo kind of thing, and stopped my wheel up, and it bucked me right into turn 1. So
yeah, kind of high-sided you into the track, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she got pitched. I mean, I was watching it there.
Crazy.
And you got, like, literally, I guess, from the carving of the wheel hitting the hard flat surface, because you were at like a 45-degree angle on the flat, on the apron, and it seemed like when
I was trying to do, because we were probably doing about 30 miles an hour at that point.
Yeah, you're trying to get back on the track.
Right.
Well, I was trying to, so if I stayed flat, I was going to wipe out. So I was trying to get back up on the track, but I still didn't have control over the front wheel, so I couldn't direct it to get up to the track sooner. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do it through the turn, and just,
didn't work.
Off angle.
Yeah, it was a good attempt. And you've got, half a second to figure this all out at speed like that, and so now because she came in on the lane that you were occupying, she gets relegated, right?
Yeah, she gets relegated, and that's the same thing. I think everything just happened so fast,
right?
That she wasn't aware of where I was really in space, and you're going so intense, and there's a lot riding on this very moment right now.
Right.
But I remember laying on the ground, and I'm telling them I hurt everywhere. I'm like, I can't breathe, and they put me on the stretcher and rolled me over. And I remember the director coming over. He's like, listen, that was a really rough crash. We're just going to bring you your jersey. Excuse me? You're gonna what?
Right. Right. Trying to figure out what's going on, right?
We don't want you to get up. We're going to bring you the jersey. I said, right. No, you're not. I said, I'm getting on the podium. He's like, no, you need to be able to put the jersey on when you get on. I said, I will.
I was like, why can't you just put it on like a shawl, like in a J. Crew commercial? Like,
right.
Just
pin it to the
shoulder.
front of you. Just pin it to the front of you. It'll be all right. Nobody'll know. Where's the lipstick?
Well, no, that happened.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's photographs of that happening. Yeah, I found a lipstick from Missy because I actually hadn't brought like my bag in. I left my bag in the car for some reason. So I got a lipstick, and I knew she was determined to go to the podium. And she's lying there on this stretcher in this absolute like glaze of pain. And I was like, we have to put your lipstick on because you are going to go up there. As much as I was like, just stay on the damn stretcher and go to the hospital.
Right.
But I knew, I respect how important it was and is to get up to that podium one way or another. And so much respect for you, my friend, how you found the strength, not just to walk up there after that crash, but to like actually for a moment be present, and we're putting your lipstick on. Then you put the jersey on. How did you do that?
What is the extent of your injuries, so that people get an idea of like, okay, you hit the deck pretty hard in a kind of a rare, weird crash, but you're hurt pretty bad. I mean, it's not like, oh, I got a little bit of track rash or road rash for people to relate. I mean, what is the extent of your injuries, and that you're like, okay, that they're concerned, and it was hard for you to get a jersey on?
I think the hardest thing was probably the ribs. So
Yeah.
I had I guess still don't know how many broken ribs, because the British medicine, they were more concerned about the lung. Apparently I had really ripped a solid hole in my lung.
Right.
Torn pretty good. Let's say your rib cavity, is yay of a circle. My lungs wouldn't take up even a quarter of the space. It had basically deflated to nothing in the corner. I did see images of that, but they were more concerned about the lung when I got to the hospital, and they inserted the chest tube to drain the stuff out around the lung so it could reinflate. So because of that, I don't know how many ribs I had broken. I did go to the orthopedic today. He didn't know how many I had broken, but there were a few that looked like they were healing, is what I got.
Okay, no.
Basically, you smashed your rib cage.
Yeah. He said it looked like I had done something a little bit ago.
Right. There's some evidence here of something that's happened.
It was still bad, but the level of healing that was witnessed gave me the all clear to start lifting. So
Wow.
I'll start lifting.
So you had these injuries, though. Right.
So wait.
Yeah.
She also had a bruised heart.
Right.
And then she developed the DVT.
Yeah, but so the progression of this is a really great story, and I wanted to make sure you kind of got this part of the story out. So you get the podium done, which is pretty miraculous though. So you have broken ribs and a punctured lung at the minimum, and you manage to squeeze into a cycling jersey that's not a full zip, and get that on and get that back off again, and you get to the hospital. You get to this part, you find out you got this punctured lung, but you're supposed to be flying home like the next day, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be, but that's now not going to happen because they're not going to let you fly because you have a punctured lung.
Yeah, they're like, no, you would die. So it's Saturday, and they're like, if you fly, you will likely die. It's not happening. So I'm in the hospital the next 3 days. My left leg is pretty well bruised up from the bike hitting it. Like Christine was saying, my heart, I was brought to a cardiac ward, so they were monitoring my heart and doing EKGs, pretty frequently the first couple of days until my heart ended up stabilizing, and then that was fine. They let me out of there on a Wednesday, and very lucky that Pete Taylor, who's from London, was actually going to be in London that week. And Shelley had said, you need to go down to London and be with people, that when you need to go to the house. So I get on a train and go down to London for, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I think it was the train ride that probably solidified the DVT in my leg. At some point in London, my leg kind of seized up, and I thought it was a muscle cramp. I had no inkling.
I remember you standing there saying that your leg hurt.
Yeah, and just
remember you were yeah.
And then Saturday I go back up to Manchester and stay with my host, who is relaying a story of DVT. And I go to bed that night and I'm Googling symptoms of DVT, and the check. If not addressed, could be fatal. I'm like, great, I'm about to die on another Saturday. I get in an Uber, go back to the hospital, and sure enough, did a blood test, and all of a sudden, I'm getting shot with blood thinners and all sorts of things, and the hope that I had of being cleared to fly home was now lost. I'm like, no. So they tell me it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks before they will even let me think of flying. And I can't wait that long. I'm not at work now for a good 2 weeks. I haven't seen my kid, and I need to get home. And so they say that, your best bet is trying to find a ship. But it's the middle of October, end of October. What ship is – we were looking at tanker ships, cargo ships. And,
can you get passage on a fishing boat?
People were looking everywhere. And
yeah, we were.
A wonderful travel agent, Laurel Brunvall, out of the D.C. area, found a Norwegian cruise line that was leaving that Saturday. I needed to be on the boat, and she found a way for Joe, my boyfriend, and my son to fly to London and take this trip with me, because it'll now have been 3 weeks. I've never been away from my son that long. And I realized, as we're going to the boat, that it's the inaugural sailing of this ship, leaving from the exact same port as the Titanic, doing the exact same route as the Titanic. This is now the third Saturday. I was certain that this was the Saturday that I was going to be done. Things happen in threes. So I'm like, it's going to happen here, but at least we'll be all together.
Right.
Oh, my God.
That's too funny. That's great that it's going to follow the same. Fortunately, it wasn't springtime. At least the icebergs have melted and gone away. So.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, my God.
But, and I recall when I was seeing, I was like, "How are you doing?" You're like, "Oh, I got this DVT." I'm going like, and you're like, "I can't fly for like 6 more." I go, "You got to get on a ship." I'm like Google searching these cargo ships. I'm like, "You could totally get a cargo ship." I go, "It'll be great."
Yeah.
So
we had people looking everywhere.
Yeah.
To find a way to get you home.
Yeah.
The tribe was nuts.
Yeah,
it's
to get you home.
With British medicine, when it all happened, Missy had said, oh, don't worry about it, because all of the medical stuff is taken care of here, because it's socialized medicine.
Right.
Well, the second day I'm in the hospital, the coordinator comes to me and says, I'm sorry, but you're responsible for all of, your expenses. And I realized I had a CT scan and anesthesia and a surgical procedure. And I just start crying because, in America, these things add up. And I was recalling the last time I had a CT scan and the bill was like $15,000. I'm freaking out. And I call Christine. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've got to do all this. I'm still broken. And Christine, almost immediately, I think, she set up this GoFundMe for me. And these incredible people donated money that made it possible for all of that to happen. All the medical stuff, and for me to be able to come home. Because I would be in debt beyond belief. And then for Joe and Christian to be able, Christian was holding on to me pretty much the whole cruise. Like everywhere we went, he was touching me. We're talking, he's 8 years old. He wants to sit on my lap. We had never been apart for so long. And
at all, right? Like this is such a shock to him.
And the moments, those 9 days on the boat, I just so thankful. And even now, every day, every day just is a blessing.
You have a lot of hands on your back, Camie. A lot of hands on your back. The CDE tribe loves you. People were asking about you today after class. They're like, "How's Camie? How's Camie? She's back, right?" Yeah.
Yeah. It's and it kind of takes you, like, you have these super high highs all week, and then on this last thing, and then you have this huge thing to have to kind of overcome, and but it also points to just overcoming all that stuff, and all the things that getting you there, getting medals and training and working with teammates and doing all these things, and it's the same things you have to then do when it's just things went really sideways and in a really unusual way that. And it made me even think of all the times I raced down in South America and screwing around in these third world countries, right? And it's like, wow, man, like I could have like been really stuck, right? I mean, but you're not thinking about how bad it could go sideways all the time. And you're like, yeah, I mean, when things just kind of add up, it can add up kind of not good, but you learn to persevere, and you're just like, well, you found a way. And that's, like I would say, winners always find a way to win.
True.
Well, and yeah. And one thing with sport, and it's a platform for real life. Things that you learn in training hard or working hard, or the camaraderie of having teammates, or the support of one another or your adversaries. It correlates to real life experiences as well, and so much of what I've learned in racing and on the bike, has a message for what happens in real life, and has influenced decisions I've made or choices I take.
And in parallel to that, I mean, we're like, kind of full circle when we talk about the track community, that somebody from the track community allowed you to be able to stay with them, and people helped you figure out ways to get back, and that so even though everybody didn't just leave the event and say, wow, I hope Camie's okay, people were checking on you and helping you in real material ways, and I think that speaks really strongly of how tight that community can be as well. When something goes sideways like that everyone just walk away and and see you next year kind of thing. So which is really cool. It's really cool. I think it's a really, I mean, as much as it's a kind of a scary story, but it's also a story of like, yeah, I mean, things can happen, but you can still overcome as well, and that it's a good community, so
yeah, it is.
So awesome. Well, you guys, man, this was like our time flew.
So it sure did.
We could probably make it a 2-hour podcast, but it's really psyched to, you guys are definitely cornerstones down at Casino and T-Town, and just knowing the successes and this year how things went, subtracting out the harrowing details of you getting home, just spectacular, both as far as from an athletic pursuit and your friendship and the community and everything. And just so it's our pleasure that you guys were able to come on and share that with us.
Thank you so much for having us. I think that the more conversations like this that happen, the more we can draw people in and expand the community and let more people experience how joyful and rewarding this sport can be.
Definitely. So any quotable last comments for closing us out here?
Take a risk, try something new, do something that scares you, get on a bike with no brakes. It's not so bad.
Awesome. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are.
Yeah.
Get out and try. We will be out there. We'll be at Casino. We'll be at T-Town. Reach out to us. I would be happy to spend some extra time helping somebody on the track.
Awesome.
And the team we are slated to do a couple of clinics and to promote some prize money at 2 events coming up this season.
Oh, great.
So
keep us posted on those, and we'll when I say we, I mean Tony, we'll post them on the website, and we'll get some word out.
Will do.
As well. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Thank you guys so much. It was great having you.
Thank you so much. Great night, guys.